Is servant leadership the right term to use? Lauren Tufts from JSI in Ottawa, Ontario, asks us to ponder if servant leader is the right term for us to use to refer to leaders who inspire us and help us to achieve our inner greatness. Sounds like a reasonable question. Let's all have a think together. You know the drill. Let's talk about it. Welcome to What's Jonathan Thinking? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Jonathan Thinking? I was researching topics for the show recently and stumbled upon a LinkedIn entry from Lauren Tufts of Ontario, Canada, who posed the question, is servant leadership still the right word to describe the role of agile leaders? Let's take a quick look at the definition of servant leadership and conduct a brief review of its origins. According to the Society of Human Resource Management's website, servant leadership is a leadership style that prioritizes the growth, well-being, and empowerment of employees. Fundamentally, servant leadership is about all the things you want in an organization, leading your team in a way that makes everyone feel included, needed, and able to bring their authentic selves to work. Servant leadership was introduced as a concept in the 1970s through an essay penned by Robert K. Greenleaf titled The Servant as Leader. After reading the book Journey to the East, Greenleaf was inspired by the main character, Leo, a servant who disappears from his job. After his disappearance, the productivity and effectiveness of the rest of the workers fell apart, revealing that Leo was in fact a leader all along. This led Greenleaf to believe that servant leadership is effective in its ability to allow workers to relate to leaders and vice versa, creating more trust and autonomy for workers. Greenleaf first put this theory to test while working as an executive at AT&T, and it has gained traction over the years as perhaps the most thought of style of leadership. Ultimately, it emerged as one of the core tenets of how to build agility in our teams and how to fundamentally bring an agile mindset to our organizations. True agile teams fully embrace the concept of servant leadership. They prioritize the wellness of the team above all else. This is how we create teams that trust each other because servant leaders create psychological safety. Teams are empowered, ideally to self-organize and self-govern without being bogged down by hierarchical leadership when building products or otherwise innovating on behalf of the companies they work for. Joe Ioracci, author of Servant Leadership in the Workplace, defines 3 key priorities, 3 key principles, and 3 key practices to outline what servant leadership looks like in the workplace. First, priorities: developing people, building a trusting team, and achieving results. Next, principles: serve first, persuasion, empowerment. And finally, practices: listening, delegating, connecting followers to the mission. All of these are fantastic. Let's unpack some of these concepts a little bit. As I mentioned, the 3 key priorities of servant leadership is developing people, building a trusting team, and achieving results. Some of these seem to be goals any leader should have, regardless of their style. It's very clear that each of these priorities tightly maps to Daniel Pink's theory of motivation, where he posits that fundamentally what our teams need to stay motivated is autonomy. We can equate this to trust. Mastery. We can equate this to development or developing people. And finally, purpose. I would equate this to achieving results. On these points, I agree that as a leader, the more I focus on upskilling my team, the more connected to their job they feel. Developing our team members also makes achieving results more predictable and increases quality. A tangential benefit is that it builds a higher level of self-efficacy, meaning they will have more confidence and belief in what they are being asked to do. Building trust. Well, let's pause here for a minute. Trust is a two-way street to me. It is equal parts required as much as it is earned. As a leader, I certainly lead with trusting my team. Additionally, I believe strongly that we are all adults in this workplace, and we should operate off a basal expectation of doing the right thing. A leader should lead with trust, but the team has an equal responsibility to respond with actions that enforce that basal value. The final priority of achieving results is why we are here, to deliver results. Agile or no agile, there should be a shared sense of the joint and collaborative responsibility we all share as members of an enterprise to say what we're going to do and deliver what we said we would. Meaning, I would hope that achieving results is a universal priority regardless of the methodology or structure used to deliver. That being said, I understand that as a leader, it is my responsibility to cast vision and help our teams understand what is expected of them, what the client is expecting of us, and how we all fit into the bigger picture. Moving on now to the 3 key principles. Number 1, serve first. The idea here is that as a leader, you should measure your success by those you serve, not those you lead. You might have seen the meme going around LinkedIn that says something to the effect that bosses tell you why they're important, but leaders make you feel important. If you are serving first, you are naturally thinking of others and not focusing on dubious concepts such as power and influence. But speaking of power and influence, the next principle is persuasion. Here, the idea is that we lead by casting a vision and helping others have a shared sense of purpose in what is expected of us. We lead not by authority, but by persuasion, using our empathy and our powers of perception to drive our teams forward, not by brute force, akin to playing the power card. And finally, empowerment. This is the proven leadership philosophy that seeks to lead by sharing power, not wielding it. Lead by giving your team the autonomy and freedom to approach their work as they see fit. Guide them for sure, but allow their decisions to be theirs, even if, as a leader, you might have an alternative view. Empowerment is about trusting that our teams know what the right thing to do is, and given the right amount of autonomy, they will do consistently. All of these things are amazing and absolutely should be part of anyone's leadership arsenal, until it's not the right tool to wield. What I mean by this is that servant leadership works until it doesn't. You can approach your teams with a selfless mindset, being there to guide and help them realize their own individual and collective potential. But there will be times when your team needs you to serve them, not by giving them autonomy, but rather the opposite, by pausing that autonomy for just a little bit to lead them in the right direction. Maybe the right term is no term at all. Maybe it should just be leader. A leader today has to be that empathic person who somehow detects what is right for their team at the moment. Sometimes you can let them self-organize, but other times you need to be aware of when the team is struggling, and you need to lead them with a more direct or heavier hand. For the uber mature, self-driven team, maybe they just need an occasional guide. For this team, what they need is more like a coach than a commanding leader. But for the team that is still in the forming stages, maybe a larger level of hand-holding and direct leadership is required. Both are different forms of servitude, I think. The modern leader today has to be markedly good at what I would call situational leadership. They can pivot their style as needed to match the environment and event they are navigating through. For every situation that requires listening, there is an equal situation that requires controlling the narrative. For every situation where delegation will work perfectly, there is an equal situation where it won't. We leaders need to be situationally aware and detect which tool from our arsenal best fits the situation. Maybe situational leadership more aptly defines what is required of the modern leader. We must lead with our heart. We must empower our teams and create collaborative, motivational environments that enable our teams to bring their authentic selves to work every day. That is without debate. But we must also recognize when being a servant leader means knowing when to pause certain principles to ensure that the team is heading in the right direction. So, is servant leader the right way to capture the kind of leadership we need today? As you can see, I can see the benefits, but I can also see some drawbacks. What are your thoughts? What style of leadership is working for you? What leadership style do you rely on the most? What leadership style do you actively avoid? Share your responses and stories in the comments below. And thank you for tuning into my show. I'll see you next time on What's Jonathan Thinking?